Hi and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for The Walking Dead, second half of Season 8. In this video I will be reviewing the last 8 episodes of Season 8 of The Walking Dead, sometimes referred to as Season 8B. So I'll have to start with this spoiler warning for The Walking Dead up to the end of Season 8. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So, The Walking Dead. It's hard to imagine that there was a time, like back in the Season 6 finale, that I was actually disappointed in this show. That I was actually expecting big things from this show. That I was actually surprised that the show wasn't good. It's hard for me to fathom that now, because for so long, it's just the show not being good is kind of like a given. And it's hard to imagine that I used to hold this show in high regard, and I used to watch it weekly, and I used to look forward to it, and I was actually surprised when they did something really shitty. And I remember at that time, when I was complaining about the Season 6 finale, which to this day I think is still the worst cliffhanger of all time, I got a few comments saying, "Oh, you say you're going to quit the show, but you're not going to. You know, you just say that you're not going to quit the show." But where it is now, where I'm at now, it's like watching the show is more of an effort than not watching it. Like, I gotta be honest, the only reason I'm still watching the show is because of this YouTube channel I do, because I know there's a lot of people who like to watch my reviews on The Walking Dead, and so it's kind of out of obligation. I definitely would have given up on this show if it wasn't for the YouTube channel. So this prospect of quitting is not a far one. In fact, it's, as I said, it's more of an effort to watch this show. Now, I kept saying to myself, like, right before I watched, because I binge watched this half season. So, for those of you who don't know, I don't watch it weekly, which is why I don't do weekly reviews. I wait till the season's over and binge it. I actually find this enhances my viewing experience of The Walking Dead, because one of the main issues of The Walking Dead is it moves too slowly, and it has like a lot of filler episodes and stuff, so this really helps you through it. Now, the thing is, with this season, and specifically looking at this half season, this 8-episode run, this is actually fairly decent. Like, there were no specific, like, filler episodes that, like, this is a total waste of time and it sucked, which is shocking, because the last, like, 3 or 4 seasons had at least one totally useless filler episode in each half season, sometimes 2 or 3, and of course season overall there'd be like 5 or 6 of these totally useless, waste of time episodes. And let me be clear, when I say filler, I don't mean character story, I don't mean, oh, this builds it up, I mean it adds absolutely nothing to the overall story, and it is just there to fill time, hence the term filler. But there were no filler episodes in this half season, which was a bit surprising. I mean, there were filler scenes, sure, but there was no, like, waste of space episodes, which I think is pretty good. So the thing is that if I had seen this half season back in, say, Season 5, Season 4, or if I compare it to those seasons, or some of the half seasons they had there, I would say this is just as good, if not better. In fact, this would probably compete with the second half of Season 4 or the second half of Season 5. But the thing is, and the reason why I don't think it's as good as those seasons, is because of the story fatigue. The accumulation is because this season did not come out back then. It did not come out a few years ago. It came out now after we had already seen the same story beats recycled, represented, just presented over and over and over again, which I'm going to get into shortly. So it's a sort of cumulative effect where the longer the show goes on, the more I don't care. And they try to treat it like a comic book, like Robert Kirkman tries to treat it like a comic book, like, oh, it's going to go on forever, and it's not going to have an end, it's going to keep going. I know the comic book then, don't correct me, but that's basically what he's saying, because the comic book ended way later in the story. So he wants the show to just keep going and going and going, and that doesn't work for television, in my opinion. A lot of shows that do this end up coming off as repetitive. They're just repeating themselves. It's just tired. Just get rid of it. Like, don't even get me started on The Simpsons. That's like in what? It's 30th season or something like that, and it stopped being good like 2 decades ago. And so it's just like a corpse, just like the Walker going now. And that's basically, I mean, so I'm hoping that eventually The Walking Dead will just lose ratings. But, you know, I'm going to drop out of that long before now. In fact, I would say this would be it. In fact, right before watching the season, I was like, alright, fine, I'll watch this half season just so I can complete the season, but this is it. I'm done. But, alright, I probably will watch on the next season, or at least the first half of it, because I hear there's a new showrunner. If it wasn't for the fact there was a new showrunner, I would not watch it at all. I would say, like, I'm done with it. This is it. But I am kind of interested to see what if this new showrunner brings anything new, if it changes. I know it's the showrunner they're bringing in is someone who's worked on the show before, so it might just be same. But she was saying that she wants to go back to the greatness of like a season 4, season 5, or you know, whatever. So that intrigues me to see if they'll actually be able to do that and not have the carcass that the show has become. So yeah, so with this season, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it's a great season. Because of the fact that the show has just gone on for too long, and it's hard for me to see any scenario where the show gets interesting again, because it's just, the characters are no longer interesting. The story beats, as I said, they're just repeating the same themes over and over and over again, and it just gets old. But anyway, let me get into the show more specifically. So let me talk about this Negan, because the last, basically season 7 and season 8, which is collectively 32 episodes, was all about Negan. It was telling the story of the conflict between Rick and the Saviors. In fact, you could say it started back in season 6. The second half of season 6 showed a conflict between Rick's group and the Saviors, even though Negan wasn't introduced until the finale. So they took way fucking too long to foreshadow this, to introduce it, which I had mentioned back then. Which is another reason why season 6 is the worst season. Anyway, so this is basically, the storyline has basically been going on for 40 plus episodes. And again, this could have been told better if it was more succinct. If they narrowed this down into one like 12 episode season, then that could be a really damn good, really exciting season. But you can tell that the story is stretched out. It reminds me of this film, Gangs in New York, which I do not like that film, because the main hero and the main villain like have all these chances to kill each other, but they don't for no reason, and it seems like they're just stretching the story out just so they can stretch it out. And it's the same thing here. There's many chances where Rick and Negan fight, and they could kill one another. Like you get a couple of them this season, including the first half. And they don't, they're not going to, because they have to save it for the big finale. So by the time Rick does defeat Negan, it's kind of lost all its hit. It's lost all its interest or spike, because you've just seen this drag out. And they just dragged on the storyline so far. Now, those people who've read the comics have told me that Negan was an amazing villain. In fact, like before the Negan was introduced in the show, I had someone saying, because I was talking about the governor, And they were like, oh, we just forget about the governor. Negan's like 1 billion times better than the governor. Governor is nothing compared to Negan. Negan's going to really come in and fuck things up. And I have no doubt that that's how it was in the comics. But it's not how it is in the show. In fact, I am going to say flat out, the governor was a better villain in the show than Negan was. And the reason why is because they were more succinct with the storyline. They didn't waste too much time. And also, like, just the way, as I said, they took an entire half season just to, like, foreshadow Negan, introduce him. Just the way the build up to it was overkill. And you can tell, like, the writers, they overdid it. Like, they were thinking too hard about, oh, this is going to be a great villain. And they were trying too hard to present him as this great villain, and just kind of assuming that he would be, but instead of actually making him a great villain, if you know what I'm saying. It's like people read the comics so they know that Negan's awesome, but those who haven't, what they see on screen doesn't really match up to that. But as I mentioned in the first half of season 8, like, I do appreciate that Jeffrey Dean Morgan got better at playing Negan, and they refined his performance, because in season 7 he was just way over the top, and he was very annoying, and I couldn't stand him that damn lean. I just wanted to scream at him to stand up straight. But I will give him credit that in season 8 they toned down the Negan thing and made him less ridiculous and more viable as a villain. But I think this season was trying too hard to humanize him, and I never thought that their attempts to humanize him quite worked, because it's a fine balance to humanize a villain, because you still have to make him an asshole, an evil person that needs to be defeated, but you can sort of understand where they're coming from and their motivation. And there's a lot of really great villains, Gul Dukat being an exceptional one from Deep Space Nine, and a lot of shows that pull this off really well. This is not one of them. Almost there, they almost got it. I mean, there's times where you can kind of understand, but still, I find like it's too contradictory. Like the episode where where he's talking about his wife and her name was Lucille and blah blah, and they tried. It's this soft side of him and then the evil side are two contrasts, like the two opposites. So you don't buy that it's the same person. It doesn't come off as one believable person, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, I mean, so that was a major issue with the past couple of seasons. I think they totally botched the Savior storyline. They didn't do Negan as well as they could have, and it just went on for way too long. So I was really happy that they finally ended the damn storyline by the end of the season, but still, I think that's a real hit. So another thing about the season, and the show in general, I would say, in recent years, why it's sort of gone downhill, is these character stories don't really work. Most of the main characters, the character arcs, they don't really make sense. And to me, the biggest example of this is Morgan. Morgan's storyline, character arc, makes no sense. It's very jumbled, it's very confused. Like, you know, we see him in season 3, he's going clear. I need to clear everything, so he's killing everyone. I need to kill you, clear. He's killing people, and then we see his return later, and then season 6, we get the episode where we learn he's all peaceful. He's like, oh, I can't kill anyone. I can't kill. Peace and harmony, can't kill. And then in season 7, like, you know, his good friend, his this young man who he thinks is going to be great ends up dying because he's betrayed by this other guy, so he turns, you know, sour again, and now he's off killing people. So this season, he's like, oh, I have to kill everyone. In fact, at one point, I was expecting him to say clear, because he was basically being that same sort of season 3, so he sort of regressed back to his old self, and they had these like visions where he see like dead people that he killed. I don't think these worked at all. That's another thing. A lot of the style of The Walking Dead does come off as pretentious and trying to be artsy. It never comes off as artsy. It comes off as trying to be artsy. And this is like a prime example. And this is another thing that really annoyed me about the last, I say, 3 seasons of The Walking Dead. So that's one thing I'm hoping that will be corrected with the new showrunner, but we'll see. But anyway, yeah, so Morgan sees the dead people that he killed, and they're telling him, oh, you have to, you have to, I have to, blah, 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 you have to. And none of that really makes any sense. And then we get to the point where Jesus comes up to him and says, oh, instead of using that end of the stick, use that end for the dead and that end for the living. So all of a sudden he's cured. All of a sudden he's back to not killing people. What? Like, you see and even within the episode itself, it goes back and forth. And it's just horrible. So I guess that's why they're sending him over to Fear the Walking Dead. Maybe they can do something with this character there. Because it just, and I think this is an ongoing thing. It's not just Morgan, it's also Rick. Like, his whole thing about, they totally botched. Like, the story was supposed to be to start the season with Carl dying, and he says, oh, you have to make peace, and he doesn't know, he doesn't really want to, and then by the end of it, he realizes that he needs to make peace, and he doesn't kill people. But in between, like, he's still like, I gotta kill Negan, I'm gonna kill you, and it just seems jarring, like it doesn't flow, it doesn't make any sense, and especially the part where Morgan and Rick go to those, the escaped saviors, prisoners that escaped from Hilltop, and they go to rescue them, and they're like, oh, come back to Hilltop with us, and they're like, okay, we'll do that, and then Rick kills them all. What? This made me despise this character, and I think I've heard, like, even before I watched this season, I heard some comments online saying that they can't stand Rick after the newest episode. I didn't know what they were referring to until now, but I think that totally ruined Rick's character. And by the end of the series, when he makes nice, doesn't redeem him. Fuck him. I don't care. That's just a despicable thing to do. And I see it as bad writing, as bad story beats. There's a lot of like films and shows that I love that do really great character arcs, very great character stories. But The Walking Dead is just like, they can't do it. It makes no sense. It's fumbled and it's all over the place. And I just cannot follow it or get behind it. And plus, why the fuck, all these people that are like, oh, we're going to go back to Hilltop and we're going to help you, and he kills them all, but at the end of the season, there's all these saviors that just tried to kill him, and he lets them live. Even Negan, oh, I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to let you live, when they are obviously not on their side. It's, and the whole thing with Carl and his letters, that was botched too. That was kind of just a waste of time. It didn't really make any sense. Like, all of a sudden, and then Negan's character story makes no sense too, because he hates Simon, because Simon wants to kill everyone. Simon killed all the dumpster people, and then as soon as he gets rid of Simon, he wants to kill all the Hilltop people too. Now, I know he gives an excuse in the season saying, oh, well, Simon put me in this situation where I have no choice but to kill them now, which I don't buy. It still doesn't make any sense. No, you're not in that situation. You don't have to kill them. You choose to. And his conversation with Michonne is like, oh, I'm going to kill you all. What? How did Negan get to this point? And what he says he cared about Carl, and yet that letter, he was just like, no, I'll kill you all. And by the end, he keeps like taunting. And as I said before, they totally botched Negan's character arc. It didn't make any sense how he's like, oh, I'm going to save you, whereas obviously he's just being a gangster prick. And I just think all the character stories were really botched. Anyway, I know so far I'm just complaining about this season, but these are just like nitpicks I have. But anyway, another nitpick I have is there's kid, I can't remember his name, Henry, I think, who's the younger brother. I've seen this storyline maybe like 8 times in The Walking Dead. Like, they had the little kid goes up to Carol like, I can fight, and Carol's like, no, you can't, you'll die, and he goes out and follows her anyway. I can't explain how pissed off I was at that. I was like slapping my head. I was ready to just turn off the show and be like, fuck this show, the show can go fuck itself. We've seen that like 6 times before, like 8 times. The fucking kid going, I want to fight, and he follows down. I was like, as soon as he said that, I was like, that kid better not follow her and go anyway, because we've seen that like truly, and not just in The Walking Dead, outside The Walking Dead. It's such a stupid trope that's old and tired, and it's boring. And when they did it, I'm like, you gotta be fucking shitting me. But anyway, and then we have these Oceanside people. We're totally a waste of time. These people could have been cut out of this show entirely, and the show would lose nothing. I mean, the whole storyline with Aaron was really, like, they didn't show it enough for it to make any sense, and it didn't really need to be there, and they didn't develop it. And then when they show up and all of a sudden they're throwing these fire bombs, like, how do they know to be there? How do they know the Savior's going to be at the right time? They just Deus Ex Machina, and it's just like the end of season 7 when Ezekiel and the others show up. It's like there's just a repeat of that, and then it doesn't really help. It doesn't really do anything. It's just anyway. And I also don't buy why Daryl's such a dick to Dwight. I mean, I get it, Dwight killed Denise or whatever, but all these other Saviors did like way worse things, and Daryl lets them all off of the hook at the end. But at the end, he's like, "You have to leave, or I'm going to kill you." And even though it was very fucking obvious that Dwight was on their side the whole time, and that he wanted Negan dead, and that he deeply regretted what he did, but no, fuck him, I'm going to kill you. But all these other people who had no regrets, and they were on Negan's side the whole time, oh, they're okay, they're fine, they get a free pass, whatever. But anyway... What's up with this garbage lady, Jadis, I think her name is. Like the scene we get with her where she dresses at she captures Negan and she dresses up and in the helicopter flight. What the fuck was any of that shit? I was with Negan. I was like, what the shit? It's like, this doesn't make any sense. And it was just so dumb because Negan was captured and then they got out. It's just a waste of time. But anyway, the other thing is, still getting into stuff that bothered me about the season. But, and this is the thing with the whole Savior storyline that throughout the couple seasons, is that it's hard for me to get any investment on when Rick group kills a bunch of Saviors, because they seem to have an unlimited supply of Saviors. Like, their numbers are undefined. Like, I know in earlier seasons they showed that like there's a shitload of people, but there always seems to be more. And I covered this in season 6. Totally inconsistent. Like, sometimes they're like appear to be a bunch of wimps, easy defeated, and all of a sudden there's like they're badasses that can totally surprise you and kill you. And there's no consistency with the Saviors portrayal, and there's no sort of hard numbers on how many there are. So whenever they die, I have no interest. Like in that mid-season or mid-half season, however you say it, like around, episode 12, 13 or whatever, when they had that fight when they attacked Hilltop, and Hilltop group were killing a bunch of Saviors. Like, I couldn't feel good about that. I couldn't feel way the killing Saviors, because I knew it makes no difference whatsoever, because there's an unlimited supply, and they won't defeat the Saviors until it's the plot required. So at the end of the episode, when Eugene makes all the guns malfunction, then that's all the Saviors, and there's no more. They ran out of their supply because that's what the story called for. Even though, like, it's the same thing. If you put this earlier in the season, you'd be like, well, it doesn't matter. All these Saviors had their guns malfunction because there's thousands more. They just spring up out of nowhere. It's what I call, it's an unestablished world. It's like, kind of like the Star Trek reboots, where the universe, the world building makes no sense, so it's hard to get invested in the story. And the same thing here is that the Savior's portrayal is very unrealistic, very undefined, very bad at world building, where there's no tangible sort of way to defeat them. Like, it happens when the writers want the plot to happen, or when they don't want it to happen, there's just not a limited supply of them that come out of nowhere. But anyway, I did like this season, though. As I said, like, I did have all these complaints, and you might notice that a lot of these complaints have to do with the whole last 3 seasons at all. But I was engaged. I did want to keep watching each episode. As I said, there was no filler episodes, which was shocking. Even though they had some bad character moments, they had some good character moments. And, like, here's the thing, like I mentioned the other main characters, how they botch their character stories, but more of the side characters that don't have much, they can handle those character stories better. Like Eugene. Eugene had a very good character story where, he became a traitor to the Saviors because he needs to look out for number one because he's the coward, and they were the ones who were going to save him. Now, we've seen him have this arc before where he was a coward, but he learned to show some courage and save people. So some might see that as a regression, but I think it actually makes total sense because the Saviors are a much bigger threat than he's faced before, and especially like the whole beatdown of Glenn and Abraham would really make him revert back, and there's a much bigger threat, and he knows he doesn't stand a chance against them. But I love how he's able to get knocked out of that when Rosita and Daryl kidnapped him and were saying, like, you're a coward, we hate you, blah, blah, blah. And that really made him wake up and made him see the bigger picture and made him sabotage all the guns, which I think was a really nice touch, even though it was very predictable. Like, I saw that the final episode, like when you had Rick and his group were going into a trap, and Negan was like, "Oh, I'm setting this trap for people." First of all, if the trap worked, we wouldn't see Negan setting it. Like in the past, the episodes like, season 6 finale and stuff like that, we just see it from Rick's perspective, and then they fall into a trap, and then they're dead, which I'm fucking sick of that. So I'm glad. But the fact that we saw Negan explaining the trap and saying this is how things are going to go made me, as an audience member, know that it wasn't going to work, and I knew that how it wouldn't work was by Eugene sabotaging the guns. I mean, that was the most... I was like, okay, as soon as they fire the guns, they're going to backfire. And because it's like the Chekhov's gun thing, or Chekhov's bullet in this case, I suppose. When they had that, Father Gabriel tried to sabotage the bullets, and Eugene told him off, and blah, 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 blah. So obvious to me that that's what Eugene was going to do, because why have that scene? That scene wouldn't be there. I mean, it's a Chekhov's gun thing. They wouldn't have the thing about sabotaging the bullets so they explode in your hand. It's obvious that was going to have some payoff. So it was obvious that Eugene was going to do that. So it's obvious that Rick and the others wouldn't be defeated. So it was obvious that that would happen. So it was kind of like watching, when I saw it for the first time, it was kind of like watching a movie for the third time. It's like, it had no surprise, no adventure. It's like, oh yeah, so this is what happens next, because I knew this was going to happen. So, yeah, now I'm getting back into the complaining side, but I don't know, as I said, I'm glad that they finally ended the Negan storyline, and I did think it was kind of exciting. One thing I thought really did work, I will say, was a successful fake out when Negan was going back from the dumpster, and he picked up this person. You couldn't see who it was. He's like, "Oh, you look like shit. Come get in." And at first I thought it was cheesy that they didn't show who this person was. But then when we see Gregory in the next episode, I'm like, oh, it's Gregory. He's going to use Gregory as a sort of plant to, set up Simon and make sure, see what Simon's up to. And I totally was convinced that was the case until they revealed it was that lady who knew that Dwight was a traitor. And I was like, damn, I did not see that one coming. So I think that was a successful fake out, but a lot of the other things didn't work. Like at the end of the season, they had an epilogue where they let all the Saviors live, and they let him go back to the sanctuary. I think it should be like almost like a Berlin type situation where they should be under occupation. They should have like supervision from like Hilltop people and not just allowed to do their own thing. Although they did show Tara going to that one outpost, but then you got the impression there were other outposts that they were just, oh, you saviors can go ahead and run that. Which, I don't know, maybe you might say, oh, that isn't the case. But if it isn't, they should have been more clear about that. They should have been more clear that they're sending people from Rick's group to oversee these savior places to make sure that they don't just go right back to their ways. But, I mean, Rick threatening to kill them if they go back to their ways is not enough, if you ask my opinion on it. But, letting Negan live and so they can put him in prison. You know, I'm very much against the death penalty, but the death penalty is a thing in the U.S. in some states. Virginia, I think so. And, yes, The Walking Dead takes place in Virginia. It really irritates me and gets on my nerves when people still say Georgia. Oh, what about Georgia? They're not in Georgia, goddammit. They moved to Virginia back in the season 5. Don't you remember? They're in Alexandria, Saviors, all that is in Northern Virginia. But anyway, regardless. Plus, the geography makes no sense. It's an ocean side, but if you get from the ocean, from Washington, D.C. area to the ocean, it takes like several hours, or you have to cross the Chesapeake Bay. If they say it's like Chesapeake Bay, then sure, that might make more sense, but off topic. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, not letting Negan live. Like, it's a sign of a civilization. Well, the death penalty is part of Virginia, U.S. law. That's civilization. So we'll have a trial, have an execution. You could do that. I think, alright, with letting Negan live, I see two possible outcomes to this. So either and I guess, so one of the outcomes I think would be good storytelling, would be interested to see, and the other I think would totally suck. And so the one I think would be good is if Negan becomes sort of this Hannibal Lecter type, this sort of anti-hero who becomes like a regular, and he's in prison and he gives like advice and sometimes tries to fuck with people's head, but ends up sort of becoming more and more as the show goes on. He ends up working more with Rick and team, and ends up sort of integrating, but he's sort of an uneasy, untrustworthy type of person. So that's storyline A, which I actually think would work really well for the show, so I hope they do. Storyline B is that he escapes and becomes a menace and rebuilds the Saviors, or tries to like kill people and tries to be more of a villain. If they do that, fuck the show, I'm quitting. It would totally suck. I mean, it's so cliche, it's so tired, it's just repetitive. And if a more cynical side of me would say that's what they're going to do because they have no originality to them whatsoever, and they're just going to do the same bullshit over and over and over again. But as I said, the fact that they have a new showrunner actually gives me some hope. If it was still Scott Gimple, then I would say 100% no doubt they're just going to do the same bullshit, repeat. But hope, as I said, I'll give it a try. And if I'm not happy with this first half of the next season, then I'm going to stop right there. I'm not even going to watch the second half. But I'll give it a try, see how we go. But the show's just gone on for too long, and even if the show does manage to impress me, I just do not see sticking with the show for much longer, because I'm getting really sick of it. And Daryl can never die, and he doesn't really do much anymore except have this face go, rah, 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 I'm here to look cool for fan service, and doesn't even, well, anyway. So my rating for The Walking Dead second half of season 8 out of 10 is a 6 good. I did enjoy it overall. As I said, there were no filler episodes. It had a really good sort of suspenseful arc to it. Like when the Saviors attacked Hilltop, and when Negan and Rick were going at it. These were really exciting things, and there were some exciting through stories like Eugene's and stuff like that. But as I said, in the past this would have gotten a higher rating, but it's just because The Walking Dead is just rinse, repeat, just repeating, recycling, doing the same thing over again. It's really becoming tiresome, and I really don't see myself sticking with the show much longer. Anyway, that is it for my review of the second half of Season 8 of The Walking Dead. You can check out my channel as I review many other shows like Game of Thrones, Star Trek, The Expanse, Babylon 5, and more, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.